Good evening, everyone. My name is Kathy Pierce, and I'm the Director of Programs at the American Nutrition Association, the ANA. The ANA would like to thank Bragg Health Foundation for their support of our 2018 Global Webinar Series. Learn more about their mission to inspire and educate people to adopt a healthy lifestyle through optimal nutrition, exercise, positive attitudes, and spiritual wellness at bragghealth.org. The American Nutrition Association is very pleased to be hosting Dr. Suhas Kshirsagar tonight and help us adapt our schedules for effortless wellness in life. Let me take just a moment to tell our audience about the ANA. We are a nonprofit organization which for over 40 years has been on a mission to promote optimal health through nutrition and wellness education. We educate the public and professionals in many ways, including hosting world-class nutrition programs such as this one tonight. We encourage all of you listening this evening to visit our website at theana.org for an abundance of nutrition information, resources, and upcoming webinars. Join the ANA as a member and help us continue to bring these nutrition luminaries to you. The ANA would like to thank Now Foods for providing the technical assistance that allows us to present our webinar series. Find them at nowfoods.com. And now, we are honored to introduce Dr. Suhas Kshirsagar. Dr. Suhas is a world-renowned Ayurvedic physician and educator from India, born of a traditional Rig-Vedic family. He holds an MD in Ayurvedic medicine with a gold medal from the prestigious Pune University in India. Dr. Suhas is one of the most academically accomplished Ayurvedic physicians in the U.S. and has traveled worldwide popularizing Ayurvedic medicine, setting up clinics, conducting courses for both medical professionals and laypersons. He has provided Ayurvedic consultations for thousands of patients. Dr. Suhas is an internationally acclaimed motivational speaker and a visiting professor at various Ayurvedic schools and universities around the world. He is an advisor and consultant for the Chopra Center and has appeared in numerous radio and television shows such as Dr. Oz. He is an acclaimed researcher, best-selling author, formulator, and consultant to various nutraceutical companies, and is currently the Director of Ayurvedic Healing and Integrative Wellness Clinic in Santa Cruz, California. Dr. Suhas will answer a few previously submitted questions at the conclusion of his presentation. Welcome, Dr. Suhas. It is a genuine pleasure to have you back with the American Nutrition Association.
Thank you, Kathy. Namaste. This is my great honor and pleasure to be with all of you. And I fully and firmly believe in the mission of American Nutrition Association about cultivating education and motivation for positive and healthy lifestyle choices. I'm a classically trained Ayurvedic physician practicing in the United States for over 25 years, and I'm here to remind all of you that while we all become busy and successful, we should not lose sight of what is most important, our personal health and well-being. Trust me, I see so many people who spend their health to get some wealth, and later they would like to share their wealth with you to regain their health, which is not always possible. And I think the very premise of change your schedule and change your life is all about awareness to your own health and well-being. And as Ayurveda is one of the most ancient and comprehensive system of healthcare that is known to humanity, it simply means science of life. It is a consciousness-based approach to health and well-being. And I like to call it as your own owner's manual for leading a healthy, happy, and productive life itself. Before we get started with this topic about changing your schedule and changing your life, I'm a clinician. I see in my practice, and I'm here to tell you that sometimes your schedule gets so busy and so demanding that it is affecting your health and well-being, and you're not completely aware of it. Our lifestyle has become very sedentary and very toxic lately. Our health is our full-time job. It cannot be outsourced to anyone. And we must participate in our own health and well-being. So in my own clinic, I see quite a few people who wake up after 7-8 hours of sleep, grab a quick bite, and commute through a very crazy traffic for 45 to 60 minutes, sit in their offices and cubicles for 8-9 hours, brave through the evening traffic, and slump in their sofas for some passive entertainment for 1 to 2 hours, and eat their biggest meal at night and go to sleep for another 7 to 8 hours. And this is what I call it as a very stagnant lifestyle. And I'm sure many of you can actually relate to some of these things. And our lifestyle is slowly becoming very dull, heavy, groggy, toxic, and tired. And the very premise of change your schedule, change your life, is to really understand the cutting-edge science of chronobiology and the clock genes, to really understand this very ancient Ayurvedic principle that how our busy schedules is the backdrop of everything. And the latest science is proving that when you are respecting your internal clock and time, then the bodily function and the physiological function is absolutely in sync with everything that is to be carried out at the right time. And your body literally looks like this when you are actually doing all the right things at the right time. But when you are not doing the right things at the right time, your body will slowly look like this, where you will be gaining abdominal adiposity, you will be gaining some weight, you'll be feeling puffy, gassy, bloated, you will feel sluggishness, you will have low energy, and this is an epidemic, I would say, 70-80% of the country is experiencing because of their busy schedules, because of poor nutrition, and because of sedentary lifestyle. So I often say, is your busy schedule killing you? And I practice in the Silicon Valley, and I often see people doing multitasking. It used to be the old school of thought that we work 7 to 8 hours each day, but with the smartphone, with the advance of laptops, computers, and internet highways, every person is working close to 13 to 14 hours each day. You start your day looking at your cell phone, and you end your day looking at your cell phones. So the boundaries have become very invisible. You really don't know where to stop and where the work begins. You go to sleep thinking about work, and you wake up thinking about work. And whether you are in an executive position or you are just a worker, this work is slowly overtaking every area. And frankly speaking, the real need for this book is because this has changed in last 10 years itself. About 2003, 4, 5, 6, 7, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even the first smartphone that the Apple launched was in 2007. So all of these things did not exist 10 years ago, and last 10 years it has really taken everything by storm, and it is changing the biochemistry, the neurochemistry, the endocrinological functioning, feeling good, bad, happy, elated, toxic, tired, dopamine hits, feeling exhaustion at an adrenal level because of social media, because of good and bad emotions, because of disconnection with your own body itself. And these busy work schedules have suddenly taken everything by storm, and before we even realize, our biology is getting affected with it. And what I call it as time poverty. Everybody is very, very busy, and we are becoming very impoverished with our time. And it's partly of perception and partly of distribution, because we are not able to prioritize what is more important to us, which is our own health and well-being, clean food, clean nutrition, enough sleep. And slowly we are forgetting those basics and getting busier and busier, because the time scarcity is kind of synchronized with the efforts and the money you make. Time in relation with money is a huge challenge currently. Everybody thinks that I would rather be working and making money instead of me resting or unwinding as such. Once the hours are financially quantified, wasting, saving, or using time always relates to profits. When economies grow, income rises, and everybody's time is becoming more and more valuable and scarcer. And time is money is the mindset that is important, but you become stingy with time to maximize money, and you forget things which are really important for you, and you start prioritizing things which are making you do certain things. That's why people are not taking vacations, people are not really finding frequent breaks, and the artificial intelligence is making people feel a little bit more insecure for their jobs as well. The tempo of life is much more faster in the rich countries than the poor countries, and it's inversely proportionate to how happy you feel in your life. And we have seen that how poorly we fail in the happiness scale compared to other developed and developing countries. Rising value of work time puts a lot of pressure on leisure time, family time, vacation time itself. The economic prosperity is creating a feeling of time poverty. And people are earning more money, but they are not earning more time. They don't have enough time to use it properly. The more cash rich we Americans are becoming, the more time poor we are feeling. And I think at an executive level, people are working 50 hours a week, and that's the standard thing, about 13.50 hours each day. That is the time that everyone puts in, and you're not even aware of it because of cell phones, because of sending emails, because of you trying to attend things away from work itself. So the boundaries have become very invisible, as we call it. And what it is creating something what we call it as lifestyle diseases. And these are non-communicable diseases which are 70% of cause of all causes of mortality. And what I'm here to tell you is with simple changes in diet and lifestyle, you can not only prevent these lifestyle diseases but even reverse these diseases. And once you start paying attention to this, I think you will suddenly realize that how important this concept is and how important it is to change your schedule so that you are able to schedule time for your own health and well-being. The reason why I wrote this book, because I wanted to create a perfect template to help people understand and synchronize your circadian rhythms of light and darkness. Whether we like it or not, Earth is tumbling on its axis and moving at a dizzying speed around Sun, and we are exposed to 24 hours of night and day cycle. So the circadian rhythms that affects every living organism in this universe, the light and darkness is affecting right down to the cellular level. And you need to synchronize everything that you do from your sunrise to sunset. And that is absolutely very, very important. And all the ancient cultures actually knew about that. So you start your day around sunrise and you end your day at sunset. But the artificial light is making us completely disconnected from the rhythms of the nature and the universe itself. And the latest science tells us that our bodies are literally like time machines, and time is embedded in our genes. There are clocks everywhere. There are genes which are cycling and oscillating and pulsating with the clock-like mechanism, and they are communicating with each other with millions of trillions of cells that are completely in sync. And sometimes when we sync in our activities along with them, then the functioning is good. When it is not, then we are throwing a wrench in the perfect functioning of the body itself. As I said, the latest discovery of clock genes not only highlights the importance of biological timing, but also validates this very ancient principle from dawn to dusk about daily routine and seasonal routine, because the food is growing in different seasons and Mother Nature wants to give you the right food at the right time because that is the season, those are the doshas, those are the biological principles that are active. And that is the food that you should be eating. This is the time that you should be resting, unwinding, the seasons, the festivals. Everything is based upon that concept. And we sometimes have isolated that social identity about what we do as a culture and what we practice or how we practice medicine and how we make money. So I think it's high time to synchronize everything and really understand how the body works like a clock itself. And what I see in my clinical practice is this super busyness is making people very disconnected from their body. The new sleep-wake cycle can simply be described as being online or offline. It is making us disconnected from our basic bodily rhythms of thirst, hunger, sleep, elimination, and many more. It is not them. I don't blame them completely, but their schedule which overtakes their biological and physiological functioning. So I think it's time to pause, look at your schedule, ask yourself a question that, can I do something which is really important, and can I make some adjustment in my schedule where I'm even more productive to be effective in my workplace? I will be more healthier with doing the right things at the right time and probably allowing my cells and tissues of our body and the organs and the organ system to replenish with vital sense of energy with a good night's sleep. So I think this is exactly why we wanted to write about it and talk about it and really create a new angle of this latest science of chronobiology, because this is pretty hardwired and very inflexible. And a lot of social and economic systems of modern humans are provoking it constantly. The current epidemic that we see of obesity, metabolic syndrome, insomnia, insulin resistance, depression, they are all linked with the disruptions in circadian rhythms. And the main premise of this book is people try to get in some form of exercise. They try to go to sleep and get enough 6-7 hours of sleep, but it's not what or how much, it is when, which is very important. The latest research shows that when you eat is as important as what you eat. When you sleep is as important as how much sleep you get. When you exercise is as important as how much exercise you get. Your daily schedule determines your weight, your stamina, your cognition, your mood, and your overall general health itself. So I think it is becoming more and more clear for all of us to realize and understand and respect that. When I was writing my earlier book, Hot Belly Diet, one of the things that I noticed was about 71% of Americans were eating most of their calories, the biggest meal of the day, after 6 o'clock in the evening. Eat late to gain some weight, sleep late to gain some weight. And trust me, a huge portion of our country, especially adults, are doing both of those things. In fact, this is a very ancient Ayurvedic principle, and the latest research is finally validating it. They tried this in laboratory mice, where a simple way to trigger obesity in the lab mice was to wake them up and feed them during their sleep cycle. So when they should be asleep, when they should be probably eating and sleeping right after that, or even expose them to artificial light, where someone was just turning on the lights several times in the night when they should be sleeping, especially first 2 to 3 hours when they should be sleeping. So when you're not sleeping at the right time, when you're eating too late and going to sleep, it was triggering obesity in the lab mice, and this is exactly what most of the adults are doing. Another things which I wrote in my book was the jet lag symptoms that go far beyond sleep disruption, constipation, and mental fog. Means we all know that people who travel do get a jet lag and their basic bodily rhythms and functions are affected. But a recent study even linked jet lag to weight gain because long distance travel confuses the microbes in your gut. And that disruption and creating what we call it as an inflamed microbiome is affecting a variety of different functions. The endocrinological functions, as well as the digestive function, eliminative functions, and immunological functions. And the current challenge that we have is what I call it as social jet lag. And social jet lag is even worse because people are kind of okay to behave themselves from Monday to Friday when they are working. They have to wake up at the right time, show up for work, do the right things, and they're a little bit more choosy and careful about eating and keeping themselves busy and active Monday to Friday. But come Friday, it's all party time. People are having license to stay up late in the night, to have late dinners, and you can't even get a reservation at a restaurant in this country on Friday evening. Is the busiest time. And then you sleep in on Saturday and Sunday. So you go to bed late on Friday, you wake up late, 9, 10, 11. On Saturdays and Sundays. Since you wake up late, you're going to have, instead of breakfast, you're going to have late brunch or something. Since you ate late brunch around 11 or 12, then you're going to have late dinner. And these variable eating patterns on the weekend will make you feel tired and groggy because you wake up next day on Monday at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock to get going for your work. And it is as if that you took a cross-country flight and changed the time zone for 2-3 hours because Saturday you were waking up at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock. You did the same thing on Sunday, and Monday you're waking up at 6 o'clock. So it's a 3-hour jet lag that you're experiencing, and we all know from the latest science that with every 1-hour time zone change, it takes 3 days to recover from that change for normalizing your bowel movements and digestion and all those energy functions itself. So imagine that if it's going to take another week or 10 days for you to regularize that function, it's going to disrupt everything from Monday to Friday, and come Friday again and you do it all over again. So this social jet lag is something which is really problematic, and people are whether they are not doing late night shifts and work, they are exposed to what we call it as graveyard shift. And there's a reason why they call it as a graveyard shift, because people who are staying up late and everything is slowly creating challenges. And sleep is one of the most important anti-inflammatory activity that you will ever do. It's the miracle drug that I described in my book, where we need to really understand and respect how valuable sleep is for every human being itself. It is like a reset button which energizes your life the very next day. And we often say that a good day begins the night before. So when your sleep schedule is affected or disrupted, because it's all about melatonin release at the right time. So when you are exposure to artificial lights, and especially blue lights from televisions, computers, cell phones, e-readers, it can delay the release of melatonin, which makes you prone for insomnia and restless sleep, and every information that you're taking in is kind of hounding you in your sleep, and that's what you're thinking about. And since you're waking up, you are going to sleep, and with a disrupted sleep, you're waking up tired. Since you wake up tired, you're reaching out for caffeine and unwanted dosages of caffeine that you need, which kind of disrupts your digestion, elimination, everything further. So I think this is an epidemic that we are seeing. So people are not going to bed at a proper time, and they're not getting good night's sleep, and it kind of disrupts the whole daily routine that's up. It was an interesting study that they took some volunteers for winter camping. And at the end of the trip, where they were having no blue light, artificial light, they were just exposing themselves to natural light. And they noticed that all of these people were falling at least 2 hours earlier, sleeping more deeply, and were waking up at dawn without an alarm clock. So abundant exposure to natural light, replacing that from artificial light during the day, and no electronic stimulation close to before bedtime was one of the main reasons that they were sleeping calmer, deeper, and waking up more energized. And they were all waking up right at dawn, effortlessly, easily, without the need of an alarm clock itself. So change your schedule, change your life is all about this. It's an excellent handbook that blends the ancient wisdom of Ayurveda with latest modern medical research. And I have designed a number of quizzes to determine your chronotype. So your chronotype is how you are susceptible to different times, changes like that. In Ayurveda, we call it as mind-body types. So you talk about Vata body type, Pitta, and Kapha body type. These are actually chronotypes. And you need to synchronize your life, your schedule according to that, and eating the right foods similar to your body type, making sure that you have to be really, really careful. There are people who are light sleepers like Vata type. There are people who are very deep sleepers like Kapha type, and there are people who get a little bit more warm and restless in the early hours of the morning, which are more of a Pitta type. So you need to kind of learn a proper sleeping routine to improve the quality and the pattern of your sleeping, and eat the right foods so that you keep those biological principles, what we call it as dosha, in check. So the book is definitely going to give you a lot of practical tips to be aware of these biological functions, to optimize your workout, improve sleep, and most importantly, live your life to fullest potential. So the latest science of circadian rhythms actually tells us very clearly some very important principles. So around midday at noon is your highest alertness. Between 9, 10, 11, and 12, that is when you should get your bulk of activities done. So your mind is very active, your brain functioning is at its peak from 9, 9:30, 10, 11, and 12. Your bodily clock, digestive function is absolutely awake like a radiant shining sun at 12 noon, so that should be your best time to eat. Between 2:30 or everything is in the afternoon is a great time for coordination, for carrying out physiological functions, activity. Around 3:30 is a great reaction time. Around 5 o'clock in the evening, your cardiovascular function is at its peak. The muscular strength is really good, so you should be busy and active physically between 5 to 6 times. Your blood pressure peaks up somewhere around 6:30 in the evening. The body temperature is slowing down and winding down. So by 9 o'clock in the evening, your melatonin starts secreting. So that's the first bus which takes you there. From 9 o'clock till 10:30 is the time when you should be avoiding any artificial light, any blue light, staying away from watching televisions, computers around that time, and slowly preparing yourself. The night at 12 midnight is at its peak. You have a deepest sleep around 2 o'clock. The body temperature is slowly waking up around 4 o'clock. 6 o'clock is when the bowel movements are waking up. It's 3 times more intestinal motility around those times. So we know some of these circadian rhythms. We also know what are the timings of the diseases, why people actually have a sudden spike in their blood pressure and heart attacks around 9 o'clock in the morning. We also know when the gout attacks happens. We also know when the bronchial asthmatic attack happens, the allergy reactions. These are all bodily functions that are being carried out, and they can be creating in terms of symptoms and diseases. But once we start respecting these circadian rhythms and the circadian clock, then you are able to reset many of these rhythms itself. And once again, going back to busy lifestyle, it is often seen that when people are very busy and disconnected, people are recoursing on poor nutrition. So they're busy and they are not following proper eating habits itself. So busy working mothers and fathers resorted to unhealthy eating options because of their work circumstances itself. So their work schedules was a primary obstacle to better nutrition habits. So I think if you're busy, then you need to really organize your life and prepare, making sure that you are having access to the right foods at the right time and organize your schedule according to that. So I think it is very important to go back and understand. And there are lots of things that I can go on and talk a lot about the scientific headlines, how we like to use our science properly. But as we go back to really understanding what is more important is going back, because earlier it was considered that we have this central clock in the middle of the brain in hypothalamus, which is called as SCN, or suprachiasmatic nucleus. And the way we interact with outside light is our environment was the light that hits our retina, and it sends a neural signal to SCN. So it tells us whether it's light or dark, and then it entrains the clock in the SCN, and then it goes through the peripheral nervous system, and everybody is aware that it's light or it's daytime or nighttime itself. And the SCN tells the rest of the body to coordinate various functions. And it's a tiny little organ, I would say. It's the size of a grain of a rice that is located in the middle of the brain in hypothalamus, which is just above the optic nerve. So this was an old school of thought, understanding this is how the body tells time. But the new model actually defies the logic completely. Virtually every one of your cells contains a molecular clock that controls its functioning and interactions with other cells and tissues. In essence, rather than being ruled by just one big clock, like Big Ben in the street of London, which tolls through the entire organism like a big clock that makes everything tick, what we are realizing that there is every living thing, there are little timepieces like clocks, ticking in unison, in function, in synchronization in every physiological functions. And not only these clocks are resetting the response to light, they are actually responding to this timeless protein, which is called as PER protein, and it sets the length of the 24-hour cycle of the circadian rhythm. And these are the clock genes, which are different in different body tissues. It could be flies or mammals or different organisms as such. So there's a clock in your liver, kidneys, pancreas, heart, and the interesting fact is they all work in a very rhythmic, harmonious fashion with each other. And they are cycling everywhere, they are affecting genes everywhere. So the whole new science that we are exploring nowadays is all about chronopharmacology, it's all about chrononutrition, it is all about chronobiology, pharmacology in terms of administration of the right medicine, the right dosage of chemotherapy at the right time. You can actually reduce the amount of medicine that is given if it is administered at the right time. So these headlines are actually going to share with us what is the importance of this biological timing. So one of the study which everybody is aware that you're consuming more of daily calorie intake at dinner predisposes to obesity that we talk about. It's very clear that anyone who is eating more calories, and if 50-60% of your calorie intake is at dinner time, you're definitely prone for gaining weight. You eat late, sleep late, the body is kind of, the cellular functions are pretty closed and stagnant, and the food stays into your system without being digested. And you wake up with that indigested food that makes you very dull and groggy. There's an interesting research that came out regarding the time changes. So whenever we are changing the clocks at different times of the year, in the summertime or the winter time, the study says that on Monday, on Tuesday, after moving the clocks ahead 1 hour in March, is associated with a 10% increase in the risk of having a heart attack. And the opposite is also true when we are reversing the clock. It actually decreases the risk by about 10%. The timing of exercise, I talked a lot about that in the book also, because your muscles have circadian rhythms that control your response to exercise. What time of the day you are more likely to burn fat and gain more energy is in the morning. So in the morning is the kapha time from an Ayurvedic perspective. You're waking up after 6, 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep. And at that time, if you do exercise, you shed the heaviness. You don't exhaust the body itself, but probably you build more muscles and burn fat more easily. And you do that before breakfast. So your muscles' ability to use oxygen for energy and adapt to demands of exercise is more efficient during the day. So after sunset, if you're going to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock exercise pattern, it's not doing a whole lot of service. You're getting more exhausted. You're more prone for sports injuries and variety of different conditions. And more importantly, it is going to affect the quality of your sleep in the night. You're charging yourself, you're energizing yourself. You come back from a workout at 9 o'clock in the evening, then you're more hungry, then you're eating your big meal at that time, and then you're awake till past midnight, and then you're going to sleep late and you're waking up late, which disrupts everything else. So the chronobiology and the neurobiology of winter seasonal affective disorders, there's a lot of research about that, how people feel when they're exposed to lack of sunlight and suicide tendencies and feeling depressed in long winter hours and lack of sunlight. Seasonal gene expressions reveals annual differences in human immunity. So you look at the pollen count countrywide, you look at the pollen map, you look at the changes in the season and how your hyperimmune activities or allergic reactions are happening during that time. The role of sleep duration is very, very important. So it's not that you get 7, 8 hours of sleep. So for example, if you sleep at 1 o'clock in the morning and then sleep till 9 o'clock in the morning, those 8 hours of sleep is not as important as if you sleep between 10 to 5 in the night. So sleeping at the right time is very important because your energy intakes, expenditure, sleep deficiency affects your food intake and how much energetic you feel throughout the day. So resetting these natural rhythms of the body and respecting those instead of being a little bit more arrogant and disrupting those. Exercise improves sleep, and good night's sleep improves exercise performance. So they both go hand in hand together. Listening to the heart, this is something which I passionately mentioned in my book about interoceptive awareness, is the gateway to feel. So you should be in connection with your body, how you feel, whether you feel tired, whether you feel thirsty, whether you feel hungry, whether you feel good or bad after eating certain foods. So be connected with your own body. Flexible working conditions and their positive effects. So it is good that you have flexible working conditions, but that doesn't mean that you can do anything during the day and then you are working late in the night. So you have to synchronize your rhythms with doing something. But yes, to a certain degree, flexible working has a good impact on physical health itself. We talked about from a nutrition point of view about insulin resistance, leptin resistance. It's a hallmark of obesity. It plays a key role in the circadian disruptions, including obesity and metabolic syndrome. The endogenous clock that we talk about is leptin-mediated endocrine feedback loop, so that gets disrupted, and that is creating unwanted cravings at unwanted times, and you are unable to really ward off through those cravings because of that disruption. It also creates a variety of different risk factors because of leptin resistance itself. Clock disruptions in skeletal muscles reduce the HIF-1A alpha activities and anaerobic glycosis. So it simply means you're training and entraining your muscles to feel stronger and healthier if you're exercising at the right time. So we talk about it alters the circadian transcriptions to the gene level itself. So when you are doing the exercise early in the morning, there's a maximal induction of HIF response. The effect of anaerobic exercise and training on feelings of energy and fatigue is very important, especially that study was done with sedentary young adults with persistent fatigue complaints. So they were given vigorous cardiovascular exercise at the right time of the day, and slowly their energy was coming back. Shift work, we talked about that. Jet lag induces acute sleep deprivation, so chronic sleep restrictions associated with worsening neurobehavioral performance. Again, we talked about this as a graveyard shift, and there's a lot of imbalances. And there are some people who have to do those activities for the society to be functioning at a normal levels, but those people have to be extra careful in what they eat, what they are doing to stay awake in the night and those things, and how we support those people to carry out those activities. I think predicting sleep and circadian phenotypes, and that's what Ayurveda is all about understanding your doshas, understanding your mind-body types and your phenotype and your genotype responses to the environment. And that's all about genotype and epigenetics, about developing the interventions to improve the quality of life. And it has a unique potential to not only prevent but reverse many diseases. So I think I would highly encourage everyone to take a look at Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life. The action plan is very simple. You have to make sure that the diet you are eating is clean and organic and is non-GMO, it's colorful. That's the purpose and the mission of American Nutrition Association. You're including all the 6 tastes. The food is made by Mother Nature. It is filled with prana, ideally plant-based food. And it is not what you eat, but when you eat is important. So eat right foods at the right time, and slowly it will help you become very bright and light itself. The takeaway point from this session is eat between 8 a.m. and 7 p.m. So this is the time from sunrise to sunset where you should be consuming your calories. Ideally, you should do some vigorous exercise before breakfast, and you should not be consuming any food after 7 o'clock. And comparatively to lunch, the dinner has to be light, maybe almost 50% of the quantity itself. Morning exercise before breakfast is very important. Sleep, and this is something which I described in the book, and there's a lot of research how the blue light affects the melatonin release and the quality of the sleep. So at least 2 hours before you sleep, you're staying away from any kind of unwanted blue light exposure, whether it's cell phone, computers, tablets, or televisions. Try to sleep between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m. That's the most important thing. And the secret for emotional health is being mindfully connected with your own body. We talk about interoceptive awareness. So checking on yourself, how you feel and what can you do, having microbursts of physical activities and exposure to outside sun is very important. And it's your full-time job to take control of your health and well-being and making sure you're feeling happy, healthy, and active. So I'm going to stop here right now and take any questions if we have some. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Suhas. What a wonderful presentation. And thank you for taking a few questions. The first is, what is chronobiology and why is it so important?
Well, chronobiology is a very important principle, and even though it is kind of a new science, but chronobiology is biological timing. The study of how biological clocks work to control and regulate almost every function of life is called as chronobiology. It is hardwired and fairly inflexible. What I mean to say by that is you can't dictate that or dominate that. It means that you have to respect your internal time. Otherwise, it will manifest as imbalance and disease. These internal rhythms of these millions of clocks who talk to each other constantly are regulating when you wake, sleep, digest food, and nearly perform every other function of a living organism. And these clocks are everywhere. The genes are cycling everywhere. In fact, last year's 2017 Nobel Prize in Medicine was awarded to three American physiologists, Michael Rosbash, Jeffrey Hall, Michael Young, for their decades of work in the field of chronobiology. So I think we are realizing how important this cycle is, and all the ancient cultures, including Ayurvedic medicine, has actually talked about how to integrate this for a day-to-day living purpose.
Very interesting. And why, Doctor, is this information more relevant now than before?
Well, as I said, 10 years ago, many of these things did not exist. We are talking about YouTube, Instagram, social media, smartphones, and now the technology is becoming faster and faster and faster. We were all happy with 56K modem a decade ago, and suddenly the pace of life is kind of hijacked with everything, multitasking. And the latest science says that multitasking is not making you smarter, but slowly it is shriveling and shrinking your brain. It is making you a bit dumb because of you're doing too many things at once itself. So the lifestyles are getting hectic and sedentary, coupled with poor nutrition. We are at a crossroad where these, what I call it as non-communicable diseases, these are not infections or things which are non-communicable diseases, and there's no pun intended here, because non-communication is you're not communicating with your own self. You're more busy with your cell phones. Even people are having a family meal and everybody's on their own cell phones and stuff like that. So non-communicable diseases is lack of communication with other human beings, but it is also not able to tap in your bodily rhythms and functions itself. So this disconnection creates disruptions in circadian rhythms, and it can turn on some very unhealthy genes and turn off some very healthy ones. So these diseases can not only be prevented but also be reversed with positive lifestyle changes. So I think changing your schedule and changing your lifestyle is the need of the hour.
Very, very good advice. And what is the Ayurvedic perspective?
I think the Ayurvedic perspective is important. As I said, it's one of the most ancient science of health that is known to humanity. And all new emerging sciences like chronobiology, personalized medicine, nutrigenomics, microbiome, and epigenetics have their roots and practical solutions in Ayurveda. It is the original lifestyle medicine. So I think being connected with yourself and slowing down the pace of life. I often tell this to my patients: for a fast-acting relief, try slowing down.
Very, very ironic, and I love that. And so, Doctor, what are some simple tips to change our schedule?
Well, yes, I have described the importance and the basis of all of those in my new book, Change Your Schedule, Change Your Life. But let's talk about some very simple basics. Diet, sleep, and exercise are the three pillars of health, and that's what Ayurveda has often talked about. So, number one, try to avoid snacking in between meals, because it kind of disruption to your digestive function, to your blood sugar levels, and variety of different things. You can have a nice healthy breakfast. You can wait easily for lunch and then have dinner. But try not to eat anything in between, and that is something which is going to reset and rekindle your digestive function. Number two would be getting some quick but brisk workout in the morning before you start your work, because you are waking up after 7-8 hours of good night's sleep. So charging your body with some brisk physical movement. It could be a brisk walk. It could be some cardiovascular exercise. It could be on a treadmill or elliptical or stationary bike. But getting your heart rate going few minutes, 20 minutes before your breakfast, you will be wide awake and you will reset your hunger and energy levels during that time. Number three, which is very important, and it's totally based upon the latest science, is try not to eat anything after 7 p.m. and engage in what we call it as not intermittent fasting, but fasting from 7 a.m. to almost 7 p.m. till 8 a.m. in the morning. So you're almost fasting about 12 to 13 hours every night, where you're not eating anything in between, and you're digesting your food completely before you go to bed by 10 o'clock. So it takes about 3 to 4 hours for you to digest a meal at a macro digestion level. So if you eat your meal by 6:30 or 7, you're completely digesting that food by 10 p.m. Stepping away from artificial light into sunlight for a few minutes several times during the day. So even if you're working in an office, building, or anywhere, try to get out 5, 6 times where for a minute or two you are looking at the sun, you're spending some time in outside light is very important. It actually resets the energy function in the body itself. So exposure to natural light and getting away from artificial light several times during the day is very, very important. And avoiding any blue light at least 2 hours before you sleep. So if you're going to sleep by 10, 10:30, then after 8, 8:30, you should not be watching television. You should not be looking at your cell phones. You should not be reading anything on Kindle or Reader or anything like that, because that will reset the melatonin release, help you sleep nice and deep, and try to stay away from any immediate exposure to cell phones or anything right after you wake up. So there should be a little bit of a buffer between 30 minutes to 1 hour after you wake up not to look at those things. So I think avoiding an artificial blue light a couple of hours before your bedtime would be a good practical way to add as a resolution to your new year, I would say.
That's fantastic, and thank you very much for all of that incredible advice. Unfortunately, Dr. Suhas, our time is up, and this has just been an enlightening evening, and we invite our audience to learn more about your work at drsuhas.com. That's drsuhas.com. So at this time, I'll say good night to everybody, and best of health to you all.
Thank you.